Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Messy Middle Road Trip podcast. I'm Nicole, one half of our dynamic hosting duo. We're entrepreneurs, wives, a mom, a favorite auntie, creative souls, and women who are fearlessly navigating the middle of life. In between our regular podcasts, Sandra and I will be going solo to talk about our areas of expertise. Sandra tackles showing up as your authentic self, and today I'll be sharing tips for choosing your identity and how to become who you were meant to be with intention. This podcast was created to bring together a community of women over 40 who embrace the past, appreciate where we are now, and take action to live our best life, because it's all about the journey. So for those of you that have been following my health journey, I wanted to give an update as to where I'm at, because there's been a lot going on in the last 8 months or so. So back in February of this year, I started working with a local naturopath. As you know, again, if you've been following my journey, my psoriatic arthritis was really flared, and I needed to really dig in and make sure that I was on track with my protocols to keep me moving towards a path of wellness. It has been a long 8 months. There have been a lot of ups and downs. There have been frustrations with flares that have come with both my psoriasis and my arthritis. But I refused to give up. And each time I would have a new appointment, we would discuss a plan to make sure that I would stay on track and try to work through this healing process naturally without having to go through getting back onto drugs, which is not something that I wanted to do. So there were some different therapies that I was looking into to add into my routine, because for those of you that know, I have been continuing on. I do a weekly chiropractic appointment. I've taken a break from my massage, which I'm hoping to get back into, only because my skin was so flared and uncomfortable. The thought of somebody touching my skin, even though it was my dear friend Jennifer, was just not something that I wanted to do at this time. But I also found a local halotherapy business, and it was fascinating to me, the concept, because it helps to heal skin and it helps to heal respiratory issues. And especially having an autoimmune disorder, the thought of just being able to strengthen my immunity with my respiratory, because for years I had asthma, which I'm no longer suffering from, thank goodness, because of my changes in diet, changes in removing toxicity out of my system with my personal care and cleaning products. But again, I wanted that little boost, especially with the threat of COVID, that happens to hit your respiratory system. So I was doing salt bed therapy appointments, which was so relaxing. I tell everybody that it reminds me of the glass coffin that Snow White used when she was in the forest at the end of the story. You lay on a bed of Himalayan sea salt, and there's an ionizer inside the bed. So you are breathing in super tiny particles that you cannot see, taste, or smell. So it is helping both your skin contact with the salt, as well as breathing it in. So it's helping from the inside out. And for those of you that suffer from psoriasis, exposure to that salt air, salt water, sand at the beach can be very therapeutic. It can help exfoliate. It can really help to moisturize and smooth your skin. And this was a great way to do it. So I really received a lot of benefit from doing those appointments. And they were about a half-hour appointments that I was doing. I also reached out and made an appointment, because one of the things my naturopath said to me was, Nicole, we're doing all this external work where you're working on your appointments, you're working on your healthy eating, cleaning up your products, but we need to work on the internal dialogue, and we need to work on the energies that you hold on to. And I'm a big believer that when we suffer trauma or stress, we hold on to those energies. That's a big piece of my chiropractic work, is releasing those energies. And working with a holistic energy coach, I thought would be my next step. I really connected with my coach on an energetic level, as well as I just love her approach and how intuitive she is and how she helps me to work through things. So we're basically working on some baggage. We started talking a bit about my relationship with my father. My parents were divorced at the age of 6, and it caused some friction and some emotions that just got held onto for all these years. So that's where we started. And each week we would work on something different, and we would focus on, again, just balancing my chakras. She would do a spinal cleanse, which is wonderful. Feels so good. It would really opened up my energetic flow so that my system wasn't depleted. Because if you're working with chakras that are depleted, which is where I was, it can really affect the rest of your body. And that's kind of where I was sitting in that pocket, which is no good. And after going to see her for, I would go once a week. After the first few months, I was coming in feeling really centered and grounded and confident and powerful, and able to change my perspective and shift things with how I was processing and letting go of things that I couldn't control, acknowledging issues or struggles, but then really changing my reaction to that. And that was so freeing. And I think that had a really positive effect on my system. Another therapy that I tried, it was difficult, I'll tell you right off the bat, was hydrocolon therapy, because I am currently going through a heavy metal detox. They discovered that I was holding on to a lot in my liver and intestine, especially from the damage that the medication that I was on for so long, what it had done to my liver, and that detoxing. And what happens when your liver and your intestine are stressed? Skin issues. So going through that cleanse, I noticed a change immediately in my skin afterwards, a change for the better. So I needed to take a breath and move through that. The body does not remember pain. So I needed to give myself a little rest after that. I do need to go back and schedule another appointment and sort of finish that. It helps to speed up the process of the heavy metal detox as well, which my body is still purging. And releasing those toxins in my system will help get my liver functioning the way that it should. And when you have stresses like that on your liver and your intestine, it can also affect your adrenals. It's so connected. It can affect your pancreas, all your internal organs, your spleen. So I feel positive about that. So that's sort of my new trifecta of self-care appointments that I've been doing. And again, really digging in, especially the last few months. I also wanted to listen to some personal development that I've had. I downloaded them on Audible months ago and just finally gave myself permission to take the time to listen to them. And it was perfect timing. The first book was The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. This book offers a code of conduct, which is based on ancient Toltec wisdom that advocates freedom from self-limiting beliefs that may cause suffering and limitation in a person's life. And so those self-limiting beliefs that can actually cause that stress, can cause those blockages, can cause issues internally, depending on how we react to that. So the 4 agreements, which again, it's broken down so simply, but when you hear them, I felt myself nodding as I was driving in the car, listening to these pieces of wisdom. So the 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word, knowing that words have power, not just what you're telling other people, but what you're saying about yourself. Don't take anything personally. I've noticed in midlife that I am able to do that much easier today than I was in my 20s, because when we were younger, everything has such drama and impact, right? We want everybody to like us. I've moving towards the perspective of, I don't really care. If people don't like who I am, or they don't like what I have to say, they're not my people. And I've released the burden of that. So that's a big one, is really just don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. You know, the phrase, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me, right? And making assumptions as to what other people are going to think about what you say or do generally is wrong. 9 times out of 10, nobody's paying attention to what you're doing. They're so self-focused on what is going on with them that it's not even on the radar. But man, do we hold such pressure for ourselves to show up a certain way based on other people's perspectives that, again, are just figments of our imagination sometimes. And oftentimes, if you want to get to the bottom of something with how somebody's feeling or how they're perceiving something, just ask. Open your mouth and ask. Because again, just because somebody isn't responding to you with a text, we immediately jump to conclusions that they're mad at us, that they don't like what we had to say, that we've offended them, all these things. And 9 times out of 10, they saw the message and got busy with life or shiny object syndrome and simply forgot to respond to you, right? But we build these scenarios up in our brains. So I love that. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best is the final agreement. And I think if you are giving it your all, if you're showing up and you're doing the things and you're giving 100% of yourself, that's all you can ask. And sometimes giving your best means that you might have a misstep or you might fail, but that's okay, because that's part of the journey. That's part of the process. You don't have to have perfection with that. You just need to give it your all and try your best. And I love that, because again, we hold ourselves to such a high standard that can really affect how we see ourselves, and we can beat up on ourselves. We are our worst self-critics, right? So those 4 agreements, I highly recommend the book. It's a very short read. Again, I did it on Audible, super easy, super fast. And there is an Audible link. If you've not experienced Audible, please go to our website and you can tune into that and get a little discount, which is amazing. The next book that I got into was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This is told from the perspective of a shepherd boy and the idea that all individuals should live in the singular pursuit of their individual dreams. And each detour or roadblock is part of the plan to prepare you. Because if you hit your dream right away, you might not be ready for it. And oftentimes there are struggles, there are missteps. There are paths that you're taking that make you second guess, am I on the right road? Should I even be doing this? Should I just give up? Should I walk away? And I love, there's a cartoon out there where you see 2 coal miners, like coal miners, where they have little pickaxes and they're one on top of the other. And they're working so hard to chisel their way towards their goal. And one of them decides, I've done it. I can't go anymore. I'm giving up. And he stops his forward progression and he stops working his pickaxe. And you, as the viewer, can see on a paper thin roadblock on the opposite side is the gold that he was searching for. So it's just that reminder, don't give up on your dreams, and don't use self-comparison to other people. Because if you're say you're on the same trajectory as somebody who is chasing a similar dream, they might get there in 2 to 3 months, and it's taken you 5 years to get there. Well, your life situations are different. Your hunger is different. Your focus is different. And there's no right or wrong way, as long as you're continuing to move forward and take those steps. And along that path, you will have moments where you stall out, you take a few steps back. But again, if you are working towards your individual dream, that's fantastic. And I think the tapestry of the journey is what makes it all worth it. Sometimes you get to that final goal and you're like, okay, I got here. But the process of getting there is what makes it so rich. And you can really stop and enjoy looking back on the journey and what it took to get you there. Because you know as well as I do, we love the stories of the underdog, right? We just eat those up, where you have someone who, whether it's a sports story or somebody who is, you know, against all odds, and they find a way to make it through and to succeed, and you're cheering for them because those are the stories that resonate with us, with the difficulties that it can take to get to that goal. And sometimes when somebody's handed something too easily, it doesn't make it quite as worth it, right? So those are two terrific books. Again, I listened to both of them on Audible. So I have a suggestion for journaling, for thinking about a list of your top 10 traits. This is something that I've been working on with my holistic energy coach. What are top 10 traits that frame your identity? And they can be a mix of positive and negative, because again, sometimes we're so hard on ourselves. And you could even, as a separate exercise, ask a close friend or sibling or spouse to do the same. You know, have them list out 10 things that they see in you. And again, you have to be open-minded, because they might come back with something that's a negative. But if it's something that you're willing to work on and change or reframe, it would be a great exercise to see how others see you. So my top 10 that I listed, number one was I'm a procrastinator. I have always self-identified as a procrastinator. Even going back to school, I can remember crunching to do the report at the very last moment, and then running out of ink in my Brother printer and having to run to the 24-hour Boston University school store to get ink in the middle of night in Boston, you know, when I was at college, so I could finish printing my paper. But I always did well when I, you know, hit those final deadlines. My second trait that I wrote down was person with an autoimmune disorder with psoriatic arthritis. I often self-identify with that. It's a big part of my health and wellness journey. Number 3 is caregiver. Number 4 is positive. I really like to see myself as somebody who sees the silver lining, sees the positivity, finds the joy. Number 5 is supportive friend. I always try to reach out and connect with, build those relationships, let others know that I'm thinking of them, especially if they're on their journey towards their dreams and goals. I want to let them know that I'm supporting them. Number 6 is funny. There's nothing better than making somebody laugh. I love that. I love smiling and getting that belly laugh and just being silly. And sometimes I'm a little self-effacing to get there. I don't care if I make fun of myself. It brings me joy when I hear others laugh. Number 7 is wellness warrior. That I have survived a lot. I've come through surprising myself with where I can take this health journey for myself. And I'm strong enough and confident enough to take those steps and lean into being well. Number 8 is loving mother, spouse, and daughter, and daughter-in-law. And I really, again, want to make sure that the people in my immediate family know how much I love and appreciate them. And I want to show that, as well as speak the words with my actions, you know. Number 9 is creative. I love writing. I love doing art on the side. I love podcasting. I love being creative with my business. So that has always been out there. And for years and years, I self-identified as a dancer. So that taps into my creativity too, even though that's taken a little bit of a back burner. I still can cut a mean rug at a wedding for sure, or in the middle of my kitchen while we're doing dinner cooking with the girls. And number 10 is passionate. I want people to know that when I get involved with something, I'm all in. And I love finding things that fill my cup and just, again, really digging in, like, and giving it my best effort, you know, like the 4 agreements stated, with always doing your best. So I challenge you to ask yourself, how do you want to show up? How is that framed? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it truly helping you to be who you want to be. And the question is, how do you change that mindset? You know, if you have things on your list that are leaning towards the negative, can you flip those self-limiting beliefs? So my top two choices that I listed are negatively framed, right? One is procrastinator, and one is identifying as a person with an autoimmune disorder. So the question is, are they positive or negative? Well, it's interesting because I always viewed being a procrastinator as a negative. And my energy coach asked me that question, well, why do you think that that's a negative? And I explained, well, it's not something that I want to be. I don't want to be a procrastinator. I want to get my assignments done in a timely manner. I want to create really good work. And I want to make sure that people can count on me and rely on me. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And she said, well, let me ask you, do you create good work when you are up against the gun to get it done? And I said, yes, I always do, because I won't allow myself to not produce good work. And she said, well, then why is that a negative? Good question, right? So those papers that I turned in, you know, after staying up all night and binging to get it done, or perhaps studying for finals all night long where I didn't sleep and went in and I aced the finals or aced the test, or created a podcast. So this podcast that I'm doing today is a little bit late because I was tied up all weekend with work events, and I wanted to make sure that what I was putting out there for content was something that I was proud of. I didn't want to rush it just to get it out on Friday at 8 a.m. So yes, procrastinated, missed the deadline a little bit, but giving myself a little bit of grace to know that what I'm putting out there, I'm hoping will resonate with some of you. And again, reframing that, okay, maybe my procrastination is a gift because I get a lot done in a very short amount of time, and it's really good quality work. So on the one hand, is there some stress associated with that I probably don't need? You know, I don't want to jack my cortisol levels with that, but knowing that I can move through that, and once everything's done, I'll be proud of the work that I put out. So being a procrastinator isn't necessarily 100% a bad thing. So I'm learning to embrace that and take it with a grain of salt, that's an okay thing, that's who I am. Number 2 on my list is person with an autoimmune disorder. And this is something that I've been kind of digging into over the last week and thinking about this, especially over the weekend. I met so many amazing people at this work vendor event that I did, and they were there selling their wares in all different capacities. Some were jewelry, some were creating wire works of art, some were selling face masks that they had sewn. And each of them had different stories about autoimmune issues and how we connected talking about that and sharing positive things that we're doing to change that for the better, and refusing to use traditional Western medicines and really digging into diet, holistic therapies, and how that can affect our health. But it made me stop and think, when I self-identify as somebody who is sick with an autoimmune disorder, guess what that does to my brain? My brain does a scan and confirms, oh yes, she's sick. She has an autoimmune disorder. And therefore, we're going to hold on to that to make sure that she stays sick, because that's what I'm telling my brain. That is what my brain is communicating to my body, and I'm holding on to that, right? That's huge. And I'm not doing it in a negative way. I'm not doing it in a, if somebody asks me, oh, how are you feeling? And I'm like, oh, woe is me. I'm really sick. My arthritis has been acting up. Like, we all know people who present like that. And man, is it draining, right? The Debbie Downers of the room. And those are the folks, they're constantly sick. They're constantly depressed. They're constantly in a state of the opposite of abundance, right? They're struggling. And it's because they're feeding it. They've created that little nest that they can wallow in. And then they, whether they're doing it consciously or not, are pulling everybody down into that little nest with them. And because it's more comfortable to stay there, because that is who they are self-identifying as, right? So the more I thought about that, I was like, man, that is not who I want to be. That is not who I want to show up as. So I need to work on reframing that. Like, it is okay for me to say that I am a wellness warrior and I'm battling psoriatic arthritis, and I'm doing it in such a way that is really energizing my soul, and it is allowing me to think outside the box and get creative with my therapies, and really working as a team with my naturopath, with my energy coach, with my colon therapy partner, with my salt bed provider, all of these things. And again, just taking the power back and really starting to reframe that and put my money where my mouth is, where I am saying that I am a wellness warrior. And I'm super proud of how far I've come. And I need to start training my brain to start firing on those signals so that it can let my body in on that as well, so that I can start letting go of all the negativity associated with being sick and just find space for that and just release. And it's interesting. I did a yoga class this morning through Gaia, which I love, on my phone. And it was all about, what do you want to let go of for the autumn equinox? What are you holding on to? What are some negative things or some things that are no longer serving you that you want to let go of? And it really resonated with me today. And one of the things I was breathing out was self-identifying as somebody who is sick, letting it go. I'm moving into the new month in a few days with really embracing being well and being excited to show up in that capacity. So whether you are on a health journey, whether you are in transition with career or empty nester transition, or you're just trying to figure things out, like, I really challenge you to think about those 10 words that you self-identify with. I want to share with you a story. Very good friend of mine, Kathy, she recently shared on Facebook, she went through a second round of cancer and treatments, and she has the BRCA gene, and it was really disheartening to hear that it had come back after she had already been through treatment once and come through with clean scans. And so the fact that she had to go through it a second time, and how frightening that was for her and her family. She had to go through treatments where she lost her hair, but how she showed up during this second round was so empowering and so inspiring. Now, she's a colleague of mine with my business. Now, she could have chosen to curl up in a fetal ball, feel sorry for herself, go through chemo, be sick, again, just feed into that negativity about, like, why is this happening to me again? How am I going to survive this a second time? What's going to happen to my family if I'm not here? Like, all of those negative things, right? But man, she didn't do any of that. She 100% focused on, I am doing this. I am going to ask for support and prayer warriors from the people in my life to send that positive energy my way. I'm going to fight like hell so that I am here for my family, because not only do they need me, but I need them, and I want to be here for them. And I'm going to show up and I'm going to face this and be brave. But the most amazing thing was, she showed up in her business in a way that she has never shown up before. And she leaned in. And our business is health and wellness. What we do is empower people to really pay attention to what they're using for products to remove toxins from their bodies. And man, when you are going through cancer treatments, that's the first thing that you want to do, right? You're putting toxins in your body as you're going through chemo treatment. So you want to make sure that you're getting rid of as much as you possibly can. And her people showed up for her in a huge way, not only supporting her business, but connecting and finding those relationships, and people sending her private messages and prayer warriors just in her corner. And I'll tell you what, she posted live on Facebook. She went live, which was so brave. And she shared in tears that her scans came back 100% clean. And her doctor is thrilled. She did it. She did it a second time. And it took my breath away to watch her. I was in tears watching her post, and I'm so thrilled for her. I'm so happy for her. But again, she chose her identity. She chose how she wanted to show up. And that is everything. When you embrace and you see what your end goal is, like just like in the Alchemist, what is your end dream? What are you going towards? Man, she was running towards health and wellness, and she did it. She did it. And I'm just so blessed to know her, and so happy that she shared her journey with us, because it's been really amazing that we've been able to send her our positive vibes and energy. I also had an amazing opportunity to get together with one of our previous podcast guests. You might remember Dawn Whalen. She joined us as a death doula on the podcast to talk about her work that she's done in that field. She lives fairly close to me. We decided to meet in the middle. She's, in Connecticut, I'm in Mass. And we met outside at a cafe for a coffee and a tea. And it was an amazing fall morning, number one. The sun was shining. We had an amazing conversation. We talked about everything from midlife to identity, who we want to be. She's going through transitions with her kids, and they're making decisions to get their lives going in different capacities, whether that's a new job or moving, or, she's even talking about what does she want to do with her career moving forward, because COVID changed a lot for her being a death doula. She's going back and getting her yoga certification to teach. And she is a cancer survivor. She's a warrior. And it's really given her a new lease on life, and not sweating the small stuff, and really identifying, like, who do I want to be for me, for my family, for my career? How do I want to show up the second half of my journey? And man, I walked away from just a couple hours sitting and talking with her. When you meet someone and you just know that they are your people, and you just connect on such a cellular level, and she's talking and I'm nodding my head and I'm smiling, and vice versa. And it was a wonderful get together, and I'm looking forward to doing more of that with her in the future. And again, just cheering each other on, and linking arms in midlife, and having that community and that connection, and knowing that we're in charge of choosing that identity and making those decisions for ourselves. And if you're not happy with where you are today, all you have to do is rewrite the script. And I know it sounds easy, and sometimes it can definitely take some effort, but journaling about it, sharing with those around you what your goals are, that's another big piece, right? You can't do it in a bubble. Who wants to do it in a bubble, right? There's so much we have to learn from each other, so much inspiration in midlife that we can share. I want you to feel empowered as you move into this second half of your story, because we have a lot left to do. We have a lot left to accomplish, and we have so much to offer. So I'm so grateful that you tuned in today. Thank you for being here and for being part of our Messy Middle community. It's such a blessing, and I'm grateful for you, for all our listeners. So thanks again for tuning in. I hope that you take time to discover who you are today. Identify whether or not you're fulfilled, or if you have work to do to become the best version of you. Because remember, we are in control of how we show up. So you can find more at messymiddleroadtrip.com, or you can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you like this show, please subscribe and send us some love by rating and reviewing the podcast. Sandra and I are looking forward to our next road trip with you. Thanks for riding shotgun. Until next time.